My name is Adam Gerstein. I work at Southern Connecticut State University. I'm one of two MacAdmins that we have on campus. We have other people who sort of do Mac stuff, but they kind of look at it and say, that's not Windows, and try and get us to take care of it. Which is great this week because I'm here and my colleague is in another room, so they're all suffering right now, which is just kind of cool. I'm also the primary administrator of our macOS infrastructure, so our Casper server, our NetBoot server, eventually our software update server, and hoping at some point caching server so we can make the kids' lives easier, maybe. I've been a Mac user since 1980 when they were called Apple IIs, and my colleague is actually someone who I used to work for when I was a student, so I've been at the university since I went to school there. Left for a little bit, got to see the outside world, and I like education a lot more for various reasons. Real quick, we're in New Haven, Connecticut, as I mentioned. We have about close to 7,000 full-time staff members, 1,200 part-time, full-time students, 1,200 part-time students. The student support is basically, can you log into your account? Good. You can log onto wireless? Good. And that's the extent of it. I know there's other schools that do a lot more, and there are times when I wish we could do a lot more for them, but because of our position as a state agency, we put the state at a liability if we touch people's computers. It's kind of ridiculous. So it's a very hands-off approach in that regard. We have about 1,000 full-timers, almost 2,000 part-timers, and not as many Macs as PCs, although that is changing, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this presentation. Why do people switch? There's lots of different reasons. Before we go into that too much, this is what works for me and the 10 or so people I've switched from the PC to the Mac. We started with XP because we unfortunately still have XP users on campus. They're a dying breed, fortunately. And how? Well, you see, the contract ended, or the support ended, and the users didn't get the memo. But we've also got cases where our geography lab has a weather station, and the version they had was running on Windows, I think it was actually 2000, and they needed to get money to buy the upgrade because the hardware wouldn't support Windows 7, or I didn't really understand it. I just know that getting them to go from 2000 to Windows 7 took basically the CIO to say, this is happening whether you like it or not. And the fact that the hard drive in the machine, which was never turned off for like 10 years, may have failed, and it may have been a happy coincidence. But for the cases where we can't just force them, we're doing everything we can to encourage them to realize the errors of their ways and get them to Windows 7. It takes a little bit of patience and trial and error. Everybody's computer is different. Everybody's set up on the different campuses and offices is weird or different. So, this is what worked for me, and we'll just get right to it. In our institution, we have several departments that are, I'd say, 95 or even 100% Macintosh. So the art department is very pro-Macintosh. Our communications department. Strangely, our nursing department is about 50-50. English department's about 75% Mac, 25% PC. So we have a lot of people that come in and they assume they're getting a PC and don't even think about asking for anything else. And it's not until they go to a departmental meeting and realize that their coworkers have Macs that they're like, well, I would have liked a Mac. And unfortunately, sometimes that means they have to wait. Sometimes we can accommodate them, and in either case, we do what we can to help them through the misery of dealing with their PC for the next days, weeks, months. We do have one department that seems to be actively punishing one of their users because they're 99.9% Mac-based, and there's one PC holdout. Now, we have like a 3 or 4 year refresh cycle depending on where the budgets are. And this person has had a Dell, I think it's a GX200 with Windows XP for almost 9 years now. And they had a problem with it, and somebody said to them, why do you have such an old machine? And they were like, well, I was never told I could get a new one. And it turned out, back channel communications with the department secretary who knows all, that they were not pleased that she had chosen a PC. So they were doing everything in their power to make her see the error of her ways, I guess. And I felt really bad because when IT found out about that, there was emails and it turned into a bigger thing than it should have. But I guess it just kind of goes a long way to show how we have to deal with some of the PC bigotry or whatever, but it can go to the extreme in the other direction if you drink too much of the Kool-Aid. So let's see. People switch, because they want a Mac. It's different than what they're used to, or maybe they have a Mac at home. All the cool kids have Mac computers, and we all know that. We've drunk the Kool-Aid, not too much. It's just, it's different. I liken it sometimes to the difference between religions, because you've got something that works for you, it doesn't work for everyone else, and just because it works for me, I can't force it on you. I've seen what happens when you try and force a PC user to use a Mac for too long, and they go a little crazy. Then there's also the advertising and the fancy iOS devices that everybody can buy. If you can buy something, plug it into your computer, and it just works, that goes a long way to selling a product, and obviously Apple knows that. The best reason is things like the crypto locker. Has anybody had to deal with this? Okay. Just this year alone, we've had 4 instances. One of those instances took out an entire department's network share. This is actually a program. We were able to recover from backups because they actually were on the backup list, and they lost 2 weeks worth of data because we knew the probable date of infection, but you can't be too sure. And of course, it was the program director whose computer was affected. So lots of egg on her face, lots of complaints about what had happened and why we didn't stop it. And I just, I didn't have any really good answers. I also want to point out that we all know how users are. If you look in the little sticky note up there, there's a black box. That's someone's password. So I didn't notice that till I was putting the presentation together. I'm like, I should make sure there's nothing like that on there. And just first thing you see when you open up her computer. So I'm grateful that she has a little education about being careful with things. And hopefully she will be more careful in the future. When you do something like switching someone from a Mac to a PC, you have to plan ahead. And the internet failed me. I wasn't sure if it was Benjamin Franklin or Winston Churchill that said this, so I just attributed it to both of them. You know your environment, you know what the users are going to be up against, so baby steps, think about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, walk them through the process because you need to get the user to buy in. And at least on our campus, if at all possible, we avoid installing VMs. Not because there's problems with them. I've had wonderful success with it. But we have users that were early adopters to things like Parallels and have done nothing but disparage virtual machines since they got them. We're using Banner for our, I don't even know what you call it, business management. And we've started using the Banner documentation management system for our grad school and processing applications and transcripts and all that other fun stuff. And it's possible to use it on a Mac, but it's 1,000 times easier on a PC. So when I had the conversation with one of our Mac users, who actually is running the grad program right now, about why she needed the virtual machine, she started telling me how, well, this person said this, and that person said that, and that person said that. I'm like, all right, well, I have to explain to you each of the things that they said and why they said it, and basically explain that if you're not using the VM, you need to shut it off. And apparently nobody ever told them that. So when they start up their computer, the VM starts. So you've got, your Retina display laptop, but half the RAM is assigned to your VM and half your processors. And so suddenly your really fast computer, it may as well be last year's MacBook. So this is all part of the conversation you need to have with the user. The biggest thing is you need to explain what's going to happen, especially as far as software they're going to be using or had been using. Talk to them. If you find out that they're not using Microsoft Publisher, then it's no big loss. If they are using Microsoft Publisher, then you need to figure out a good replacement for it. And if the word access comes up, I usually just pack up my stuff and leave the room and get them a PC because there's obviously no reason for them to change. You have to really work with them and get them on board. And to make things easier, there's all kinds of different cheat sheets. Some universities or offices make their own. We use a company called Quick Source Learning, and they make really good ones for Office 2011 and the PC version for 2013, as well as the various versions of Microsoft Mac OS 10. So when they get a new computer, they get a couple of the cheat sheets if they're new Mac users or new PC users. And we don't really get that many phone calls from them. Luckily, we also have a teaching and learning technology group that will sit down with the users and go over some of the stuff that they, hopefully at this point, should know how to do. You also need to try to identify problems that they're going to have before they happen. Obviously, you can't fix it all before it breaks, but you know what the communications department primarily does. So they're working with a lot of audio and video files. So if they use a specific program and it's not available for the PC, you may have to sit down with them and try and find something that does the equivalent of what they're doing and make it easy for them to make that transition. I can't think of any good recent examples of that, but I'm sure you guys have special software that the departments use. Actually, SPSS is a good one. We have it for the Mac and the PC, so we just need to make sure ahead of time that it's installed. And if you guys are like us, you're on a July to June financial cycle. So the end of June is when the SPSS license expires and you get the panicky phone calls. This year we got the panicky phone calls and we realized that we hadn't received a new license key. So that started a different slew of panicky phone calls. But that's the kind of stuff you need to think about and try and plan for. As I said, you know your environment and your users. You should have an idea of what they're expecting to do or bring with them or use when they switch to the Mac. One of the biggest problems we have is people think that because it's on the computer, they don't have to worry about storage. So we have users who have mail stores, be they from Eudora from 10 years ago, and they just have been dragging them along with them since then, or even PST archives from Outlook. That contains every single email that they've received since they started at the university. There's little things like that that you need to factor in. And I usually do like a quick survey of their computer and take a look at that kind of thing. A PST is a PST, but there's no reason it should be 4 gigs, and there's no reason it should contain every chain letter they've ever received, or recipes, or even the minutes from a meeting from 10 years ago. My favorite thing is explaining to people how they can take the message, remove the attachment, and free up space on the server, which until recently was a problem for us. They're just amazed that you can do stuff like that, and it never would have occurred to them. Another consideration for something like that, however, is email. You sometimes have to hold on to things for litigation reasons. I have a coworker who's got a brand new HP all-in-one computer, but he still has his hard drive from a computer from 5 years ago because he was named in litigation. And right now it sits in a hard drive enclosure attached to his computer because he's occasionally called upon to provide a copy of an email or a document or something. If you can, I guess it depends on the legal requirements, but I would suggest if you can, put it on a DVD or something and make sure the user knows where it is and make that their option, because you can't really slide another hard drive into an iMac or a laptop. And we all know that what's going to happen to a 10-year-old hard drive when they try and plug it in one day to get that critical email that's part of a 15-year-old lawsuit that's still going. Proper planning prevents poor performance, or my coworker's favorite quote, proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. Semper Paratus. Does anybody know what that means? Always prepared. It's a good motto. As I said before, you can't plan for everything, but you can try to. And so if you can think of what a user could possibly come across before they do, you'll be better off. My favorite thing is that, you can't plan for everything, be ready to phone a friend. So when it's coming from a PC to a Mac, I will make sure that one of my PC colleagues is available in case I run into some obscure program and get them in my cubicle if I need to. Compatibility problems. So it's not just that they don't have Microsoft Office on their computer. It could be, thanks to recent innovations in the Mac OS, that it doesn't say .docx. Or it could be a really ancient Microsoft Word file. Have you ever tried to open a Word 5 file lately? You will get a message from Microsoft Office or Word saying it can open it, but you can't open it that way. You have to go to the File menu and choose Open. And I had a user who had a folder of, I want to say, 40 syllabi that she had put together over the years and used them every year. And when we switched her to Office 2011, found that she couldn't double-click them. And that was the worst thing in the world because it meant that her files were inaccessible to her. Now, I knew how to fix it, and I knew it would take 20 minutes to open each of the files individually, resave them. But from her point of view, it was the end of the world. There was a piece of crap computer. There's nothing we could do to fix it, and she wanted the old one back right away. Another problem you would come across is missing applications. So in the case of Microsoft Publisher, what are they going to do if they need to open their Publisher files? I don't have a good answer for that still, and occasionally people ask. I think you need to open it in Publisher, turn it into a PDF or something, but it's not like you can just open it right up into Illustrator. And Publisher has its own learning curve just like everything else, so that's going to have to be a factor. If they're just doing something occasionally, maybe they can make do with Word or something like that, but you know your users, they get really invested in the programs they know how to use, because if I do this and I click here and I hit Control-Shift-P, then it does what I want it to do, and I don't know why it does that. I don't know what menu I go to make that happen. I just know Control-Shift-P makes it bring up the print dialog box. So unfortunately that turns into a whole lot of hand-holding, but it's worth it in the end. There we go. Another problem, of course, is the learning curve. Now, we all know Windows 7 isn't as scary as it used to be. Windows XP, Windows 2000, and Mac OS X and Windows are very similar at this point. So if they can't figure out how to close a window, it's safe to say they have some bigger problems. But there's little changes that are different. You can't find files. They expect to find on the desktop the My Documents folder. If it's not there, then where are my files? Everything's gone. I want this piece of crap off my desk. They say piece of crap a lot. And it's just too different is another complaint. And it's just one of those things where they need to take the time to get adjusted, understand that the frustration isn't that they don't know how to use a computer, it's just the changes to the computer. And I like to refer to the language change, because on the Mac you have an alias, but on the PC it's a shortcut. On the Mac you have a dock, and on the PC you have a taskbar. It's little differences like that. We have a control key, but we also have the command key. Probably till the day I die, I'm still going to refer to it as the Apple key. And just the other day, I was trying to walk a colleague through imaging computers. I said, well, press the Apple key. And he's sitting there, and he's looking, and he looks at me and says, where the hell's the Apple key? And I laughed at myself, and I said, all right, command key. But it's just one of those things where you get so used to it, so I can understand the user's point of view. Other little things like the location of the control panels. On the Mac, it's called System Preferences. It's a huge difference, but you know, for them, they have to get used to it. So you need to factor that in. It's the emotional support that you need to provide. And then, of course, my favorite, but there's no right click on the mouse. It's hard to explain to someone the difference between a single click and a double click on a Mac when you're talking about single click, double click. But it's one of those things where they obviously pick it up eventually, and it just it gets frustrating. Moving forward, in an ideal world, we give them a fully named and bound computer with all the software they need. They plug in their backup drive, restore all their data, and everybody goes merrily on their way. As someone earlier to say, it's all smiles and rainbows. That doesn't happen. For OS changes, like Mac to PC, we will usually be involved in some way. We do have some very advanced users that are just say, give me the computer, I have it all backed up. We generally hold the computers for 10 days, 10 business days before we use them for something else or pull the hard drive and destroy it. But for those users, that's not a problem. It's the other users that you know that will call you on the 11th day and say, you didn't destroy my hard drive yet, right? Because I just discovered that this really big file I need for a presentation next week for the president of the university is missing, and the only copy ever is on that hard drive. And you're standing there in front of the degausser. Hard drive literally in your hand. Luckily, it's before you put it in there, but we've started to push all the backups for, well, backups in general, but also for hardware changes back to the users. So on the Mac, obviously, you just set up Time Machine. On the PC, I've heard tell it there's a built-in Windows backup, and I've heard good things about that, but I don't have any first-hand experience. I think our average backup size for the users is about 20 gigabytes, but we did have one who I think was 3/4 of a terabyte, and that's a long time to sit in front of someone's computer in their office, idly chit-chatting, coming up with things to say, while you wait for the progress bar to slowly go across. My favorite was a similar situation, watching his iPhoto library. And I made a comment about how big his iPhoto library was. And he's telling me about all the personal vacations he's taken with his kids and how every picture he owns is in there. And then it finally finished that, and it started backing up his work folder. And I noticed a lot of references to a book. So I asked him, are you writing a book? Yeah. Yale's publishing it for me because I teach there too. Now, I work at Southern, and he's working for Yale. I have no problem with that, but he's using our computer to write his book that they're going to then publish, and it's going to be on the Yale Press or whatever the imprint is. The line between personal computer and work computer is blurring. I make a very concerted effort to keep my personal stuff off here, mostly because I know that there could be a lawsuit and I could be named in it, and I'd have to give up my computer. So I've got a Dropbox folder, but that's backed up elsewhere. But everything that's on here, for the most part, is work-related stuff. For the faculty members, we've given them this computer. It's theirs to do with. You know, I see people at the conference, they've got stickers on it. It's not a big deal, but like, I had a user who brought me their computer because it stopped working. And in addition to the stickers on the back, there's stickers all over the keyboard area. And it wasn't working because their kid had been playing a game and spilled some soda on it. And I would have been fine with that, except for like the layer of just grossness on the keyboard. It was clearly not their computer. It was clearly the kid's computer. And they probably hadn't used it in the 2.5, 3 years that we had given it to them. For whatever reason, I don't want to get into that, because if someone gives me a computer, I'm going to use it. I'm also going to take care of it. And I don't know. The reality is they do a backup, and as I'm sure you guys know, you look at the backup and it's just the folders that were on the desktop, which are actually aliases to their My Documents folder or My Pictures folder. So they're like, yeah, I did my backup, all my pictures ever. It only took a couple seconds. And you just stand there shaking your head. Okay. So you have to walk them through that. And the other good thing is when they forget to mention that there's software they need, as I mentioned before with SPSS, I just need Office. That's all I need ever. Oh, but I also need Photoshop and SPSS and actually the whole rest of the CC suite and this other obscure program that we have on campus, and I need Final Cut Pro. Now, all those software packages take time to install. I'm calling you 20 minutes before the appointment to remind you that I forgot to tell you that I needed all that software, and you can make it happen, right? Which brings us to the missed appointments. How many of you guys work in education? Okay, the majority of you. So the faculty operate on a different plane of existence, I think. So if it's not office hours, and if it's not office hours and it's not class time, then they just do whatever they want. And if you have an appointment with them and you don't show up, you're wrong. You show up for the appointment and they're not there. They're not wrong. You just misunderstood what they meant. It's just insane. I mean, it leads to that, and it's just very frustrating, but you guys all know that. When it comes to actually all the stuff we're talking about, a lot of it applies to moving from a Mac to a PC as well. So prep on the PC or the Mac before you move. Now, I have here a batch script that you could run on the PC to get things ready. I started to try and put together a batch script. I don't know anything about scripting on the PC, so it's probably best that I didn't go too far into that. But I can envision, because the batch stuff is all not terminal, command line, DOS prompt type commands. You could probably script something where it'll make a folder on the desktop, move their stuff into it, and then when it comes time, you just transfer that one folder. I don't know how to do that. A lot of times when we transfer users' data, there's stuff in their trash. Now, some of the transfers I do are just a ditto command. And so everything's going great, and then it gets to the .trashes folder, because it's like the third thing it starts to copy. And you see the A, and it's like AAA book, AAA B book 2, and it's just in the .trashes folder for a good 5 minutes. And you're thinking to yourself, how much time am I wasting here? Because they couldn't be bothered to empty their trash. And it's like literally, since they got the computer, every single thing they've ever thrown out, because they don't think about it. And I'll admit that I don't think about my trash folder all the time either, but if you can save yourself a couple minutes doing that, do it. Same with the .exe files and their downloads, because once they get on the Mac, unless they get a VM, it's not going to matter. I've never had a lot of success with compacting PST files, but it can save you a little bit of time, so why not? And if you can make the user do it beforehand, you get to waste their time and not yours. And just in general stuff, how many times have you looked in a user's download folder and seen Adobe Acrobat Reader Installer 1, Installer 2, Installer 3, Firefox or Foxfire Installer 1, Installer 2, Installer 3, and it's all different versions. And I would imagine if you were to survey an entire campus, you'd probably find like petabytes worth of multiple installers. It's disturbing. So just do the stuff you might normally do when you're helping someone upgrade. Clean house before you start the process of moving all the stuff over. I have actually said to people, you can't break it so badly that we can't fix it. One person proved me wrong. They got rid of the system folder. The computers, I mean, unless you delete your data, you can't screw it up too badly most of the time. If they have backups, I'm not worried about it. And I wouldn't be talking to them most of the time to do this stuff unless they had some sort of backup. So I usually tell people, if you're afraid to do something, look it up on the internet, ask a colleague, call the help desk. That's what we're there for. And they just, control key came off their keyboard, so they're using the other control key, even though it's less convenient, because they don't want to call the help desk. They're afraid we'll say no. It's a keyboard on your computer that you use every day to teach classes. The university is there to teach the students, so we get money from the people coming in, and if you can't teach your class, then do the math, we don't get paid, and I'm out of a job, so call the help desk. It's kind of remarkable. Conversely, we've had faculty members show up days before class, because that's when they report back with the keys missing from their keyboard. Yeah, I need it back in 20 minutes. Can you take care of that for me? So you guys all know what I'm dealing with. For any computer changeover, I actually tell them they can call me directly for a certain number of days. Really depends on the user. If it's a person who's comfortable on the PC but they're hesitant about the Mac, I'll usually tell them about a week. If it's pro PC user and I know that they're not going to have any problems, I'll just say, call me for the next day or two, otherwise call the help desk. And you have to be very firm in guiding them back to the help desk, because the people will call you constantly and you end up with Klingons. I have people call me because they had a question about what kind of paper to put in the printer. It's your printer, your department, I don't care. Pink, green, purple. Call the help desk. So it's gotten to the point where if you have caller ID on your desk like I do, unless I'm working with you or unless I'm expecting a phone call from you, the voicemail, it's magic. And I really love when they call and call and call and I finally pick up. Well, I've been calling you for days, but you didn't leave any voicemails. So that's part of my process, is I tell them you have to call the help desk, or if you're calling me, leave me a message, because I won't call you back unless I know you called. I'm not at my desk most of the time. All right. Have you guys tried using the Windows Migration Assistant on the Macs? I'm not seeing any. Oh, one or two. Okay. Did it work for AD accounts? Because when I tried it, completely ignored it. It wasn't until I created a local temporary account that it saw it. That's not really helpful. I've seen the Migration Assistant in action, and if it worked on the AD accounts, it would be wonderful. So I did a search, and the first 4 pages of Google results were, I think the top 4 links were links to Apple's Migration Assistant pages or pages about the Migration Assistant and how to get it and how wonderful it was. Then there's hundreds of thousands of discussion forums about transferring from the Mac to the PC or PC to the Mac, and YouTube videos about how awesome it is to switch from the PC to the Mac, and I'm going to show you the best way to do it. And I could only stomach one of those videos. And then there's the bash script that I wrote. Right. Right. Well, right. When I started looking into a batch script to automate some of that, that was the first thing I thought of, because favorites is basically a folder full of URL files. And that's useful, but then to rebuild that, you've got to build it by hand. So I thought there's got to be like a Visual Basic script that will open up Explorer, export your favorites into an HTML file. And I found like 3 scripts that said they would do it, only it does the top level. So if you have nested folders, or even just folders with all the scripts in the thing because you're super anal about categorizing, you end up with just a list of folders. It doesn't do the subcategories. So that's when I kind of threw in my towel and said, I can't do this scripting on the PC side. We have a checklist. I don't have it with me, but on the PC to PC transfer, this is what you do. So I could very easily come up with a similar thing, and the first thing on it would be open in an Explorer, file, export HTML, done. Luckily, the Windows 7 and Windows 8 user directory is very similar to the OS 10 user directory structure, so we can take advantage of that. Documents, photos, music, movies, and then if they have a PST file, move that. With the Exchange server, it's awesome to be able to just create a new account and have it populate with the stuff from the server. It's usually after you've moved everything that they say, oh, and I had all my mail files, why aren't they showing up? And so you have to copy the 3 gigabytes worth of PST files that go back 14 years. It's very frustrating. In my research, I found that Firefox has profiles, Chrome, and they both have profiles that everything's stored in, and I've not reliably been able to get it to just put the profile in the right place on the Mac and have it just work. Import or treat the bookmark file in there like it's its bookmarks and the way you would expect it to work. Because on the PC, apparently, you move your Firefox profile from one PC to another and it just picks up. So there's obviously some difference in the files or something along those lines. At that point, though, you have the bookmarks.html file, and that's really all they care about. You can just import that, you're done. Same kind of thing with Chrome. And then there's the templates for Office, which is probably the thing people don't think about. Departmental memos, that kind of thing. People make all kinds of templates for various things. If you can save yourself a little time and look in those directories, or even just launch the application, see if they have any custom templates, you can grab those quickly and be on your way. Other applications obviously have similar types of profiles, but I haven't gone into that too much because mostly it's, I want my Firefox bookmarks copied, done. And users don't always put things where you expect them to. So root level of the hard drive, buried in the System32 Etsy drivers folder, inside the Microsoft Office 2011 Microsoft Office Assistant something or other root bin contents directory. They find ways to put stuff in the weirdest places possible. And they know it's in a weird place because, oh, the only way I can open that file is if I go to File menu and choose Open Recent, and I pick it from there. So you do that, hold down the Command key, and go to the menu, and you're like, how did you even figure out that that folder existed? Well, I don't know, it just offered to save it there one day. Okay. It's just, you build a better idiot-proof box, and they come out with a bigger idiot. What's that? Well, right, resistant. They're always coming up with new ways to amaze us. So it pays to just take a quick look through the hard drive, see if there's anything that jumps out as being patently wrong, and that's why we have the 10-day policy, because there's always someone who says, I need that file. You're going to need to recreate things. Obviously, shortcuts don't work anymore, and they have shortcuts to network resources or applications. Some stuff you can do in the dock, some stuff you just throw on the desktop. And printers, because we've had student workers switch people over and walk away thinking they were all done, and you get the phone call. I need to print my syllabus because class starts in 10 minutes and there's no printers. So luckily, with our Casper tools, we can just push the printers to them remotely. And we've gotten better about saying, all right, that computer is in the English department, give them all the English printers, and planning ahead that way. So if you have tools like that at your disposal, I highly recommend it. And the only thing I found that you can definitely safely ignore, and it's really the exe files. There's always a chance that there will be some program that will open something, except apparently publisher files. But even then, I'm sure they'll have some reason for keeping this publisher file that they've been using for 15 years. And any questions so far? All right, I have a little demonstration of my script. As I said, it's new to me. It's a starting point. I ran into some problems, so it's not as robust as I want it to be. Ideally, you could run this script and it would take the stuff in their My Documents folder and put it into their Documents folder and the photos and this and that. It'd be really great if it would also, when they log in the first time, launch iPhoto and have it import the data. And I'm sure it could be done. I'm just not the guy to do it today, at least. So.
Quick question. Are you on Active Directory or no?
Yes, we are. Actually, thank you for bringing that up.
You're creating local accounts?
Well, for the purposes of this demonstration, yes.
Oh, but you don't really create local.
Right. That was an interesting thing I discovered, is that you guys all know about like the Mac Enterprise mailing list, and there's a # OS X server IRC channel, which I know some people are on right now. And it's a wealth of resources that you just don't know are there because you don't necessarily look. Rich Troughton, who's here, he seems to post, I think every time I've seen someone ask a question and he answers it, it's usually the answer and then, oh, and I wrote about that. And his website is just filled with information. So some of the stuff I have, I got from him, and I'm super grateful for it. Sorry. Let's see. All right, so for the purposes of demonstration, I made a VM just for this, and this is going to be difficult. I brought my PC with me. I don't like using it, but you can see the fancy Dell thing. So I'm going to plug it in here. Hopefully it doesn't save it from falling. All right, so I have on this my accounts and then my test account. Now the script I have, just really, I should have thought this part out a little better, I guess. What's that? Nah, because then it'll screw everything else up. All right, so this is my bash script, and you'll get the URL at the end. there's a section here. All right, so this stuff here creates the local account. Now, you guys are probably all in directory-based logins, so Active Directory, Open Directory, whatever. This stuff you could just delete or comment out, and you would end up using this bit here. The first time I tried this was user who had a laptop as their spare machine, and it died. And she was pulling her hair out, because if it doesn't turn on, her data must be gone. Pull out the hard drive, plug it into another computer, everything's there. Her request for a secondary computer replacement is approved. I ran this command, which created the local or the mobile account on the hard drive, copied her data into it, choned the data. She logged in. Everything showed up like she had been using that machine for a year and a half. That saved so much time because it had been up to that point a process of us copying the data into our local account, having the user log in, destroying that, copying the stuff, choning the stuff, having the user log in again, discovering that we didn't notice that some obscure file was locked and couldn't be choned, and just, it saved me so much time. So that couple lines, turn that on, delete the local directory stuff, and you can use this anywhere. And it's really cool. Some would say insanely great. All right, so you have to be sudo and type properly to use the script. All right, so it asks you for what directory you want to copy over. Now, this is the account I use. It's probably got like 2 or 3 gigabytes worth of stuff. For the purposes of quickness, we're not going to use it. I'm just going to grab this one. I hit return, and it's asking if that's the right username. Now, you probably wouldn't do this for the Active Directory-based stuff because it really only needs the short username, and it will get the rest of the stuff from the server. So I'm just going to say Adam. I spelled my name right. Oh. Okay, so yeah, I should have done no there, and that's fine. You know what? We're going to start that over. You can also pass the directory path as a switch as long as you put a, well, not a switch, just a variable at the end, as long as you put a space at the end. So there's the username, Gerstein, one user. Yes. And so it's asking for the full name because when you create local accounts, you need the full name. So it copies the user template, English LProj, directly to that user account, and then it creates a local account. And then for extra value, do you want the person to be the administrator? How many times do you guys make the end user the local administrator? Yes? Yeah. No? Okay. We usually make the Mac users the local administrator, but strangely, PC users not so much. So it's created the account, created a desktop folder to put all the stuff in because I didn't want to mess with overwriting certain things. And so now it's grabbing stuff. And I purposely put in pictures and some Word documents and stuff just so that it would look better. If I really knew how to script, I'd have a little dot showing up or some kind of progress. Right now I'm logged in as our local admin account. This is a VM I just threw together for this, and I'd never done a Mac VM, and I don't think I will never not do Mac VMs for testing or even software building in the future. I have an iMac on my desk that's behind me, and I usually just remote control it, which is the most ludicrous thing in the world, is I'm sitting there controlling the machine behind me. People walk in, and they look at me like, I can't. But, all right. All those errors are some sort of weird OneNote PNG file. I'm not worried about it because it's just trying to change the ownership. But that's the only error I got when I did the transfers, or actually when I changed the ownership. So considering the number of files I just transferred, what else could have gone wrong, I'm very pleased with those results. So it says it's done. And thanks to the magic of user switching, when you create a local account, you have to give it a password. it didn't like no password. So I just temp password. And you could script this out because I feel that there's value for something like this, especially because lots of our faculty members have their personal stuff on there. I just left it in. And so if we look in the transfer folder, we got, I think, yeah, some downloads, some favorites, no music, some pictures, really racy stuff, barcode numbers. Clearly I was having fun that day. And so, yeah, I mean, being able to do this makes my life a lot easier because I can just throw the stuff in there, and it's going to make life easier for our student workers because we can now send them on some of this stuff instead of us, which frees us up to do the more managerial type things. And that's honestly all I got for the presentation part. So if there's any questions, I saw a hand before and then you.
So you, that hard drive you just copied off of, that's out of a PC?
Yeah, if I'd thought about it, I could have brought my PC in here, slapped it back in, turned it on, and you'd see it was my stupid Windows 7 box.
And I was just thinking, but it's NTFS, and then I realized I can read it.
Right, and that's working to my advantage here, yeah. You had a question in the back? If I had had more time to, I was literally working on this last night because it was still throwing lots of errors. So I stripped out some of the stuff that would do that, but it's just a bunch of Unix type commands in a script. And I was actually astounded how easy it is to write a bash script. I don't know why I haven't done it sooner. It's a lot easier than some of the batch files I've seen. So you could definitely say if it's, you could get a list of the directory and say, all right, well, this user's got a My Documents folder. Copy everything in there to their Documents folder. Because it's creating a local account, I pre-populated some of the stuff in the process of creating the account.
So on the PC, you're copying from the PC, you're copying it into.
No, this is actually the hard drive from my PC. I just grabbed my user directory and threw it at the script, and the script said.
So I'm saying, if the script runs, you have to have a piggyback in your Mac.
Right.
The script knows that it's piggyback.
Right. So one of the things it does is it takes the directory you give it and looks at the last part, and that's why it asked. That's why it asked what the username was. If we go back in, it should still be there. So yeah, that's the source. So Gerstein A1 user, and then it says the username is this. Is that really the username? Because it could be the folder that you backed up on their desktop, and it's just called backup. So at which point you could rename it there. And then the part where it says creating account shell set this stuff, that's just for the local account in the DSCL, just on this virtual machine. If it was to one of our bound Macs in an AD, as long as it's talking to the server, you can create that directory without problem and change the ownership no problem. And then when they log in, it provides the password and the real name and the other stuff. And it's mind-blowing how easily that worked, and I don't know why I didn't try it sooner. It's just commands to talk directly to DSCL. Yeah, the line before that with the create mobile account, that's for the AD stuff. If you're going to download this, I'd give it till tomorrow because I'll probably go in and make some more changes as far as the comments that make it make more sense to people who aren't me. This one here?
That's good.
Yeah. And then there's, I put URLs to some of the websites I got the information from about this. Ostensibly, it logs the stuff. Right now, it's only logging the stuff that the program generates, not the user interaction. And you can see it doesn't have any of the chown errors. I'm still not sure why it's doing that way, but I don't know enough about some of the Unix commands. So if anyone has
writing there that stuff that you're echoing, the errors are.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to. It's using the T command, which is supposed to echo to the screen as well as to the file, and it's not doing it the way I expected it to. But it was my first try with that, so I'm not. The fact that I have a log file that has what I typed in. I was pretty impressed. Well, not what I typed in, what the command, the script did. So, yes.
The no you CHG command, I believe I have that right. We'll take care of some of those errors that we found.
You mean with the chown?
So flag lines are no you CHG. That's the one.
Okay. Well, then what I could do is oh, isn't that nice? I'll make a note for that to tell you what. So it's just another flag, no UCHG? Flag, got it.
Flag, it's just that beginning. Separate line.
Like that?
Yep.
Okay. Capital R?
It's either capital R or lowercase.
Okay. So like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I will have to try that tonight. Does anybody else have any questions?
Do your users have network homes?
No, local homes.
But even on the Windows side, there's no network home?
There is network share space. Brian, how much do they have now? Is it still 250?
About that, yeah.
I mean, at one point it was 20 megabytes.
Not a heck of a lot of
Yeah. For the PC users, the login scripts mount that stuff. The Mac users tend to either not know that it's there and therefore don't care about it, or know that it's there but not use it because, fun fact, you mount that directory. Okay, so that's what it looks like to mount that directory. FacNAS02As or NAS. The home $, and then everything in the home $sign directory is invisible. So if I mount that and I close that window, there is a Gerstein A1 icon on the desktop with a circle with a slash to it. In order to get it visible again, I have to basically unmount the volume and mount it again because it was a security feature. It was a decision made to make all the home directories invisible.
Something can do that without even... you don't have permission for other people, but you have ownership of your own.
Right. This is since I started at the university 9 years ago, back and forth discussion with the administrator in charge at that time. He was adamant that it's a security risk to be able to know everybody's username. And I said, can I see your phone directory for a second? Yeah, whose number do you need? I said, no. That's your username, right? And that's the president's username, and that's our director's username? How is that any less secure? And he just very, very, very set in his ways, and I couldn't do anything about it. So I'd like to give that person a lot of things.
And it's I'm sorry, it's just
So
And it is capital R.
Okay. Well, I know there's a difference between the -R and -R switches.
you said 250 megs.
That's how much our home directory is. Until, actually, it's still 2 gigabytes, right, Brian? Our Exchange store. But it currently, the publicly stated mail store is 2 gigs, I think, right? Yes. Until, was it 2 years ago? It was 20 megabytes? No, it was 250 megabytes. Because I manage the Mac servers, I get into the data center a lot, and I was given a guided tour of the mail store and all of the wonderful 7,200 9 gigabyte drives in the RAID arrays for the mail stores. And I gave the system administrator the same look you're giving me. And he said, somebody made a decision and somebody else didn't fact check. And so that's what we have. And that's why you can only have 250 megabytes of mail. Yeah. So when we got to go to 2 gigabytes, that was a huge deal.
How old are those RAID arrays? How do you even get 9 gigabyte drives in?
They were not that old when we bought them. We've only had them for, I think those were 5 or 6 years old. Just somebody didn't check the right box or specified the wrong part number. I'm not really sure. 9 gigs. Yeah. Because I had offered at one point, I said, I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to buy a terabyte portable hard drive. I'm going to give it to you. You plug it into the server. Make me have a terabyte of mail. I can't do it because it has to be across the board. We would get requests from people. I need more mail storage. And I think they even had to say no to the president because this is how many users we can support. And we're like at like, you know, this is the limit and we're right there. There's actually
Ask your exchange guys, at what point do you automatically forward my mail?
well, actually, they have disabled the forwarding feature, which is probably good because the students started doing that, and then they just sent the students to live@edu, which is fine. We had an outage on our mail server that started sometime on Sunday and extended to Monday afternoon this week. So I had a meeting. I was till 3? Okay. I had a meeting scheduled for 9:30, and then I was supposed to leave the university and come here. And I didn't get the message that the director that was supposed to be in the meeting, and basically the meeting was tentative because he sent the message on Saturday, and my policy is 3-day week and I don't work. I'm not looking at my email. So when he didn't show up for the meeting, and like I showed up and the mail's down. So it turned out that there was a problem with the ESXi infrastructure that was compounded by a failure in some sort in the backup data center on the other side of campus. And one of the guys was in at 3 in the morning on Monday. I love him a lot. He got us our mail back, but we just installed a lot of the infrastructure that they're starting to play with. So we're going to have more mail soon, or mail store soon. And I'm sure other wonderful things are going to happen, including allegedly SharePoint. But all this stuff takes time. And when the primary Exchange server's in Orlando at Disney, and apparently was working from there because of the severity of the problem, makes things worse. Not that, I mean, as I was standing here using my phone to present, like 45 new emails. Luckily, they're all from the Jamp server telling me about stuff because we have lab being replaced this week. But every time my phone goes off, I'm like, I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it. And so just the fact that I could be on vacation, they'd be calling me. You had a question? There's discussion, I think, probably pushed further to the forefront by what happened recently. But I know they've been looking at doing something like offloading it. Brian, when does Rob start? Next week?
Monday morning.
Monday morning, we get a new CIO.
And a lot of these issues, Matt,
Yeah.
a lot of these issues that Adam mentioned are compounded by the fact that over the past, 8 years?
I've been there 9 years. We've had 10 CIOs. That includes interim CIOs filling in for when people left. But yeah,
Have you tried your script with network accounts?
I have only been able to try the script here. Ooh, I don't want to log out of that account. So I didn't have access to our network accounts. But the first thing I'm going to do Monday morning is throw it at a machine on the network and make sure it works the way I expect it to when I turn off the local account stuff and turn on the network account stuff. And actually, let me...
How do you handle requests for auto archiving when you move them over?
I didn't hear the question. So I thought he would...
Sorry. When you migrate people over to the Macs, anyone that has auto archiving set up,
That
on
is
their
a good
PC
question.
Outlook, how do you handle that?
Is there a solution for the Mac, since I have a good audience here, for auto archiving on the Mac?
I use one.
Of mail
Auto
from, like, in Outlook, for example. But on the PC side, there's auto archive, so anything over 30 days automatically gets shunted to the archive. Is there something like that on the Mac? I haven't seen anything either. The closest I've come is my recurring schedule. Anything in my trash over 28 days old, bye. And the same for my newsletters folder, because if I haven't read it in a month, I don't need to read it. So
In the mail
that's, well,
or in Find?
officially we don't support the mail.app for Exchange access. So that's actually in Outlook. But you can, well, I don't think you could do the same thing because I use mail at home and it's kind of a mess.
Stuff you can't do with Mac Outlook.
We need to demand feature parity. I'm going to hold my breath.
Office
Right.
2011 on Mac, you can create a role inside the Outlook that does the same thing as Outlook.
So that would be if it's over a certain age, then move it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's create a role though, it's create.
I think, you know, if I had sat down and thought about it, but like the user says, I need to be able to auto archive like this. And just from my preliminary research, I hadn't thought about it. And I don't think I would have thought about using a rule because a rule would apply to incoming mail, wouldn't it?
You can apply it to stuff on the game.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, there's your answers. Apparently we can create rules. So we're both going to go check that out. Was there any other questions? Almost anything. Let me know. Okay.
Did you have a management system with your PCs and then a corresponding management system with your Macs that you had to get the users used to? For example, if you have SCCM on your PC side now, if you're a Casper shop like we are, that would be our transition. Like App Launcher is now self-service, and do you have anything?
We're using Altiris, but that's more of a management for imaging and pushing some updates. And we don't have parity with Altiris and Casper because I'm trying to think of a right way to say this. We need certain approvals to be able to do certain things. I would love to be able to force the latest Flash update, well, maybe the latest Flash update -1 on the users when it's available, or at least when it's vetted by us and we okay it. They do that, at least I think in the labs for the PCs, because there's, I think, of the 2,000 PCs on campus, probably 750 to 1,000 of them are probably in some sort of lab type environment. There's a lot more vulnerability, I think, in that way. And the Mac users, the faculty members seem to be on board with, if there's an update, I'm going to install it. Actually, they fall into two camps. They either do or they don't. And the ones that don't definitely don't, because 10.6.5 or, you know, still at 10.7.1, because, oh, well, it said I should update, but I didn't think I needed to. We've actually gotten to the point recently where we've started discussing the need to start pushing the security updates that Apple comes out with, and the best way to do that, because you need to balance the usability versus the security. And
You don't have any software management?
we do. We just, I can definitely do that stuff in the labs, and I do push Flash all the time. I don't have a stamp of approval for it, but I know no one's going to complain. But when it comes to the user stuff, the faculty are quite, what would you say, Brian? Powerful is not the right word. They, in their own minds, they run the campus. So, well, yeah. But we need to, we can't inconvenience them, even if it's for their own benefit.
How is it inconvenient to silently install a software update?
Because some of the stuff might require a restart. And how dare you demand that I restart my computer? I haven't restarted literally haven't restarted my computer in 3 months. Not me personally, but users 3-month uptime. And why do I need to restart it? I just close it and I open it and it's there.
Sure, it's dead. Password, what is they like? There's self-service that they like. If you have access to that, if you are up to this certain level of updates or software.
Okay.
If you're not up to that level, all you see is software update. Self-service.
We do a third pass, which is and we do a quick pass onboard health checker. Do you want access to the network and anything more than 8.80, 4.43? So you can't access credit, you can't do anything. You just not up to date.
Okay. Yeah, we had something similar when we were using the Cisco Clean Access system, but we've now moved to a secure network and an insecure network, and the students get the insecure network because it's just port 80 and mail in 443, and the faculty members with their shiny barcoded university equipment get everything. And when we were still on 10.7, because of the way the profiles worked, it asked me for my password. I typed it in, and I can't get on the network now. And you look, and there's 6 local preferences or profiles instead of the one system profile. And if they can break it, they will. But yes, I mean, I think if we can start forcing some of this stuff on them and make it as painless as possible, we'll be in a better position.
To get to a business management people, the security risk, stuff that can go with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we're talking, start with the security stuff. If we can get that in place, then the rest of the stuff will be easier. What's up? You mean like BYOD kind of thing? Or like managed as far as what we do to the computers? Well, if we give them the computer and make them the administrator, they can do whatever they want. So there's a certain amount of flexibility they have. There was talk with one of our CIOs 3 years ago about starting to give the faculty members a yearly stipend to pay for equipment, and we wouldn't have any equipment to manage anymore. Regrettably, she's no longer with the university. So
If you want that.
I did not. I especially did not want for our users, because this is about the same time that Best Buy's and its many scandals with the Geek Squad and users' data ending up on YouTube or whatever were coming to light. So that was one of the arguments. And when the faculty found out about, so their argument was, if I bring my computer to IT and it's my computer and you're not going to fix it, what is the point in giving me the money to buy the computer if you can't fix it? And her response was, you can just go to Best Buy. And she's like, yeah, but I got to pay for that. If I give it to you and it's your equipment, then you got to fix it. I can see the sense in that, and the faculty members are seeing it as sort of a free computer, but then you got to pay for all your support. And I don't think they realize what a drain they are on our resources. And it's not in a bad way, but we don't implement any kind of chargebacks or anything. And I think if we had even just a rudimentary chargeback system, the departments would be up in arms about how much time the users spend on the phone with stupid stuff. I can't print. Did you try plugging into the network? Because you're clearly connected to the public wireless and you can't print from there, and you've been told that 4 times now. It's users, can't live with them, pass the beer nuts. Any other questions? Okay.
I work for a company called, I work for Cisco. Basically in the window, trying to move to the Mac platform. It uses a license control. It's a small server. So you folks who Mac have, if you were given a project, so you had to install this. If you install Windows, but right Your feel on how you folks will
I can't speak for the room, but I think we have a couple of products on campus that use the Flex software. Yeah, SPSS. So that software, the licensing software, sits on a PC server that I think it runs licensing service for a couple other products and maybe one or two other services. Yeah. I'd say 99% of our server room is some sort of Windows variant. But yeah. If you have PCs in the data center and you can spare room on one of them, just use that. It's
That's basically what we're trying to feel for. Your Macintosh job, small Macintosh, or hybrid, or you folks tend to go with Windows, stuff like that.
right. Well, I mean, you know, a web server, it doesn't matter if it's a Mac or a PC. File server, you know, I think nowadays you can speak AFP and SMB and a lot of the other file sharing variants on both platforms. So it's really what you guys are comfortable with and what you have in place. I mean, the reason we are hosting our Casper and NetBoot and file sharing on the Macs is because we had the space on the previous, we're on Mac Minis now, but we were on Xserves. And when we had the budget to replace them, we replaced them with other Macs because of some of the problems we have with the, I shouldn't say problems with the PC guys, but if I'm managing it and I know what I need to do, I can just do it. Whereas if I need to go through the PC guys for the server team or the Windows Server team, just getting them on the phone can be a pain. So if it's something I need to change and I can change it, I'm just going to do it. And my change notification is I call that guy there. I'm bouncing the server. Okay, click, and that's it. I usually tell my boss too, but it's change notification for the PC stuff just never happens. And so we get the notice that, with the exception of the stuff that affects the students, I should say. So if a server needs to get bounced, they'll generally try and do it at odd hours. But the Mac stuff, I'm the one who does most of the imaging with Brian. So if the imaging's weird or it's really slow, finish whatever we're imaging, bounce it, and just get back to work. It's a lot easier. Anyone else?
To comment on that point, other than the stuff that's obviously Windows, like AD Exchange, and stuff that's obviously Mac, like Voice Studio, a lot of our servers now are Linux. They're just not Linux. You don't even look at the console. Most of them have some sort of web-based interface or SSH, and that's
It's a lot more, I guess, cross-platform on the back end. And, you know, if the users are on a Mac, as long as the stuff works, they're not going to care what it's on. And that's the best part. I have 45 seconds left. I honestly didn't, I thought the room would be empty by 10 minutes left. So I appreciate you guys listening to me and all your questions and your suggestion about the flags command. Well, if you wrote down the URL, I'll update the script and make some changes. And thank you very much.